Sure. So we recording this for your channel?
We'll make the content and then decide what to do with it, right?
Okay, cool. Sure.
Theoretically, I might be able to come in through my phone and actually smoke a cigarette while we do this, and that'd be cool. But so like, we are in the sacred flip thing with Ryan.
Yep.
So can we do a private review of that and decide if we share it with him?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm up for, like, even when you first asked if we're around to talk, I thought you just needed someone to talk to. So if
Well,
we're just recording this for your sake
cool.
and you want to watch it again later, cool. If, yeah, like as long as we're both comfortable with it, I'm fine with anything being posted either. But yeah, we can decide that after. So if you want to, and we could break it into two parts. Like if you want to talk about something intensely personal, we can do that all at once and then discuss something else.
See where it goes then, and we'll have the recording afterward. I wanted to come on and do a truth or community infiltrator tell-all. Because basically it's the last year of my life. So it's kind of like JBP past authoring in a way. And I decided it'd be easier to have somebody walk me through it. So I was fishing for people for that originally as part of it. But like, we have so much else we can also talk about that doesn't even have to be that for what we do right now. But that was the original intent, was to kind of like sum up the last chapter of my life and be done with, like, put a bow on it to what audience I did have for it.
Okay.
Like wrap it up, because I'm kind of distancing myself now. But I got the t-shirt.
Yeah, you want to start with that topic then, and then after move from there, or do you want to talk about something else first and come back to that?
We'll just see where it goes. The angle I'm on right now is that from the sacred flip perspective, we go in and we fiddle with get in touch with and fiddle with all our own parts. And like, as far as the meditation wise, I've found my soul object is a lantern, and I've taken it in one personal meditation to where, like, I picked up the lantern and went deeper, and then I crossed this wooden log bridge over a platform, and it was like this huge cavern with flowing waters and shadows and light shafts and stuff, kind of like in a Prince of Persia type video game, if you've ever played one of those.
No, I haven't played one of those.
They're like adventure games where you're navigating trapped terrain and stuff, most of it.
Okay.
They have the occasional fights too, but mainly you're puzzle solving with how the human body works. And it was kind of like a cave with a bunch of that, and I had just crossed over a petrified wooden log, and then I trucked back up, and that was good enough for me. But it went deeper, right? And so as far as being in the course goes, that's the most internal work I've actually managed, other than trying to name some of the parts. And because have you ever heard of the state-based consciousness?
State-based consciousness. I'm not sure.
It's popularized as if you're high when you study, take the test when you're high.
Oh, okay. I've heard that theory.
So, like, if you do, like, you're more resonant if you're doing things in the same state of consciousness.
Yeah.
And for me, these personality things, and I'm guessing it's not politically correct to associate drug use and mental illness, other than to say that, like, some drug use seems to be mimicking the symptoms of mental illness. So let's just say that. Do you remember when I asked you about the shape of consciousness?
Yeah.
Okay, it's a napkin ring.
Okay.
And the napkin of reality is going through from the right side and from the left side. It's kind of like your corpus callosum in your brain. And it spins at an operating frequency. They got the brain waves, the delta, gamma, theta, whatever. And it's probably a measurement of those. Ask me about my pyramid scheme one day. Anyway, so it's a napkin ring, and your consciousness is the napkin ring spinning.
Okay.
Like different states from depression to mania are like variations in the speed at which your consciousness is spinning and what part of the napkin
Okay.
it's swinging into. And so some of these personality parts that I've identified have clinged to certain operational states. And so in order for me to integrate them, I either have to simulate those states via meditation or get there by what I call biochemical alchemy, which is nicotine, caffeine, etc. Um, and I'm in one of those states now. And like a lot of the work and thought and stuff that went into the last half of my life, or last X years of my life, since my post-Peterson time period, was characterized by being in this operational state. So it's awesome that I have someone as deep in the same areas where I like to play, pop culturally, to have that shared language to discuss these things and express them. So thank you for this.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with you that some sub-personalities, you can't really access them without either doing what you do when they're active or without being in that sort of mood. It can be very difficult. Like, so to access a lot of the personalities that are more active when I'm manic are much harder when you're depressed and vice versa. So what's active in you today?
Biochemical alchemy wise, like what am I on, or
Either.
nicotine, caffeine, and cannabis.
Okay. And so what
and I gambled earlier today as well.
And what earlier?
Gambled.
Oh, okay.
So that may have that was fun. That was fun. It ended with I've been fighting this machine called the Empress of Time all day, waiting for her to give me the bonus. And you put your card in the machine so the system knows who you are. And so I gambled with that, and she never gave it to me. And then I took $5 that wasn't in my gambling money, and I put it in without putting my card in to let the machine know who I was. And I hit the lowest bet, and the first spin was the bonus I've been waiting for all day. So that, I don't know, to the extent that that experience can factor into how fast your napkin ring spins, I feel I should include it.
So the rush of that win?
It could just be the sin of gambling. So I feel it's a factor, maybe not compared to the nicotine, caffeine, etc. But full disclosure, for scientific purposes, don't you know?
And so how do you feel about gambling? Is gambling something you're okay with you doing? Because you referred to it as the sin of gambling. Do you have
I understand it to be a sin. I don't even know the verse or which religion say it is and which one say it isn't. But in my mind, it's in the list of sins.
Okay, so what if, though, we didn't look at it from the perspective, because it sounds like you're saying objectively it's considered a sin. And if we took the more like Petersonian method of like, fuck what anyone else thinks, what do you think of it? Is it good for you or bad for you?
I was I just recently saw the last season of Twin Peaks thing, in which Dale Cooper, spoiler alert, inhabits a tulpa, I think, for a while, and
Okay.
he goes to a casino, and in the casino he sees which ones are going to jackpot, and he goes over there, like he can barely function in this thing, but he goes over there and he pulls the thing and he goes hello, and the jackpots pour out. And so that was the angle I was was holding when I was there.
But like
exploring psychic phenomenon was why I was there. It wasn't to sin. It wasn't for avarice. You know, I don't know what makes it a sin in the list, but that wasn't a sinful motivation.
Yeah, and so what? Like I can totally understand gambling being wrong for some people, where if they start gambling, they gamble money they shouldn't gamble, and where it takes over their time, where they don't decide to go gambling, they have to. On the other hand, there are people who enjoy gambling very much, can completely control it, and spend the amount they should spend and consider it just part of their entertainment budget. So
Right.
if it doesn't cause you to live life badly, I'm not sure.
Why
Like,
it's
yeah,
worth
and I don't
carrying
want
the
to argue
judgment.
whether it's technically a sin or not, but I can totally see how gambling could be okay for some people if you can control it, and not okay for other people. So, like, for instance, does it kick off in you too much greed or materialism? Are you dishonest? Do you shirk other responsibilities? Do you gamble money you shouldn't gamble? Like, are any of those things happening?
Well, from the sacred flip perspective, um, I included it not only for scientific purposes, but also because it lumps in with backslide and things I've been abstaining from, which includes cigarettes because I've been vaping, and cannabis
Okay.
also. So it's like, I think I felt it needed to be included in the backslide.
And so, has gambling ever been a real problem for you, where you've
Mm,
lost too much money, or?
I made it too much of a. I never. It was never a problem to the extent it wasn't. It got to be a too big portion of my entertainment budget, but it never was a problem. You know.
Yeah, see, I don't see anything sinful about that.
No, and we can go without the judgment, but
Yeah, unless like it's bad for you. But if the occasional gambling's a fun rush for you, also, if you notice, okay, perhaps you know the saying, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Perhaps for you, before enlightenment, gamble is part of entertainment. After enlightenment, gamble is part of entertainment. It's about the way you do it. It's about how you feel like it. It's about being mindful of it, observing its effect on you. So, for instance, if you can control it all and everything, and you notice that your nervous system gets this fun little rush out of gambling, and that you can actually control it, and you want that mood lift, I guess, and so long as it's not really a problem for you, because I understand for some people it is, and I wouldn't want to say this to the wrong person, but for you, I don't see how that's necessarily a problem. Notice that all these activities, if we can remove the judgment level, which of course we shouldn't with certain things. That's why I wanted to make sure, is this okay
right.
to remove judgment with you? Like, obviously, if you were fucking stealing from your mother all the time, we wouldn't remove judgment from that. But if there's not some reason we have to apply judgment to this, and we look at it more non-judgmentally, you just observe your reaction to doing it. And be mindful of it all. So, hey, when I gamble, I do this, 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 and this. Well, I like all of that and I approve it all. Now, for another person, it might be, once I gamble, I set a limit, I go past it, I stay out too late. Like, if they mindfully observe themselves and realize they can't make their next mortgage payment and their wife is pissed at them, then that's different. But if your observation is, hey, I get a little thrill out of gambling, it does this, this, and this to my mood, then perhaps what's wrong with it?
I'd like to throw in the perspective of, if you're gonna fuck the hooker, fuck the hooker. Whereas, like, once you start backsliding, go ahead and backslide, because otherwise you're just gonna ruin the backslide and feel bad about it. So,
well, yeah, and again, and if we're not talking about something immoral here that you're falling back into, but instead perhaps that in between, that guilty pleasure, even if it's just fucking eating too much ice cream or whatever. Yeah, if you're gonna fucking do it, do it.
And I think it was it's a big part of it is invoking. It's like ritualistic, because like the habits become ritual. So what I did was a ritual to summon some of these other parts of my personality that have been on lockdown since the last time they were summoned.
Yeah, and so if you didn't spend too much money, if you didn't, like, if nothing else bad happened from it, I'm not sure I would call it the sin of gambling at all. And like, for instance, with me, like, and if you look at studies of what guilt does to us, both psychologically and physically, what stress does to us, and what our mental emotional states, you know, the placebo effect and the nocebo effect. The way I look at smoking is, if you're going to smoke, fucking smoke. And don't feel bad about it. If it's really not good for you, because I know some people have quit smoking because they say they feel like shit and they feel better after. I really don't feel like shit from smoking. overall so I smoke guilt free.
And
And
also, we've discussed elsewhere that the psychotics have been found to benefit from the tobacco or the nicotine.
yeah, absolutely.
It reduces psychotic symptoms without you having to be on Haldol.
Yeah, it reduced, and like other things they will give you, like fucking lithium, the long-term side effects from that are fucking horrible. We will very readily, it depends what category something's in. If we categorize something as a vice, then, we just focus on it being bad for you. If it's a medication, we'll put up with all kinds of side effects. But also, I do think like the power of that placebo and nocebo effect and the power of following your own intuition, of knowing what's good for you, is just really fucking powerful. I think worse for you than smoking is smoker's guilt. If you're gonna fucking smoke, feel good about it. Or if you can't feel good about it, like if it's really that hard in your system, maybe someone with asthma or something couldn't just smoke and feel fine. Okay, then fucking quit. And with everything, it's like, if it's bad for you, fucking stop. If it's not bad for you, stop feeling fucking guilty about it. And start doing what's right for you. Set aside other people's opinions unless it comes to major right and wrong. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, someone has a place to tell you about damage you're doing to other people or stealing or things like that. But people get very judgmental about every fucking thing and want to tell you right and wrong.
Here's the thing: is I want a cigarette now, so I'm gonna go do that. But I think that those judgments, like, let's say those judgments are a thing in an ocean. They're like things that stick out of the water and form the shape of the flow of the personality. Like what lines you draw and what's a sin and what isn't a sin has to be like almost a type of rock.
Yep.
And I can try and play a clip while I go smoke or whatever for the recording's sake. But I'm gonna go have a cigarette and see if I can't get this link to my phone so I can come in from out there.
Okay, so if you can't cut back in, I'll just fucking put on a song or something. You can cut this out. I'm happy.
Yeah, you can screen share from that side with Zoom, right?
What was that?
You can screen share from that side with Zoom.
Oh, I
Is
don't
that what
know.
you're doing? Or how are you talking about play a clip to listen to?
Oh, I was going to say I will just entertain myself and just put on some music while you're gone and we can just cut this out.
Oh, right. We're recording. I'm used to being live. Sorry.
Or are we live?
No, it's a live recording, but I'm used to it,
Yeah.
That's just habit. I'm sorry.
But I'm extremely patient.
Meanwhile, have you ever heard of Ingress?
Ingress. I don't think so.
It's a phone game. You've heard of Pokemon Go, maybe?
I've heard of it, but never played it.
All right, it's a phone. It's basically geocaching made game.
I have an old phone, and all I use my phone are texts and calls. I don't use any apps whatsoever. I've never played a game on my phone. I can't watch a video.
Ah, that's wise. Once you go in the smartphone trap, you're part of this network. And is that screen sharing good? Refresh the page.
Yes, I can see a map.
It's a global game of capture the flag where you make triangles, mind control triangles over the world. You see the green and the blue?
Yep.
Those are the two different teams. That's what's going on in China, and that's what's going on in Russia. It's a global game that Google came out with, and they built Pokemon Go on top of the engine that runs it. And it's like a big part of one of my characters' backstories. So I want to establish some familiarity with people on that level if I can. But yeah, that's Saudi Arabia. Like poor Iraq has hardly any. And did you see that Bright Insight the other day where he said that like 500 years ago this wasn't underwater and there's probably a bunch of good shit down there?
No.
And I know you've seen The Crow once and aren't familiar with it, but this one sticks. So I'm going to run it if you can see it and go smoke a cigarette. I'll be right back.
Okay, cool.
Tell me a story. A man and a woman in law a year ago. Motherfucking mine. Listen! I'm sure you'll remember. You killed them. On Halloween.
Yeah. Okay, Halloween, yeah. Some dude, some bitch, whatever, man.
Her name was Shelley. You cut her. You raped her.
Shelley, yeah. I shanked her pink ass and she loved it. Murder, man! Murder! Let me tell you about it. It's fun. It's easy. You gonna learn all about it. I'd like you to meet two buddies tonight. We never miss.
Try hard. Try again.
Victims, aren't we all?
Complications inside of me remind me that my heart will always be young and patient and that's smiling out my rotting teeth. I will die here in this sorrow. I was waiting for tomorrow, never came. How to take the pulse till your heart is cold against the wall. Talk about me, cry about me, tell me to the cross. Feel like for the only loss. I will hide in its sorrow. I was waiting for tomorrow, never came. Now the tables, my soul from
I'm almost back. What are you playing, sir?
Welcome back.
Thank you. What are you playing?
Actually, yeah, this would be a good one to share. Motorhead, Don't Lie to Me. Pick the one that says lyrics on screen. We'll watch that together.
Lyrics on screen. All right, is it showing that?
People talking, but it ain't the truth. Lying ain't no substitute. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. Trying to put the blame on somebody else. Ain't no reason to know. To stop you even what you sow. You must know right from wrong. Don't make out you don't know what's going on. A man ought to do it right. And if we gotta fight all night, that's alright, I got time. And fighting liars suits me just fine. A man ought to tell it true, according to his point of view. And whatever you wanna be, don't lie to me, don't lie to me. People talking round and round, whisper rumors trying to bring you down. You can't make shit into gold. Nothing's over till the sun is gold. People talking all around the world. In fact, I'm throwing up words. Turn around so I can see your face. I don't care if you need your space. A man's gotta be a man, and you can see just what I am. There ain't no room for mistakes. Everybody knows the moves they ought to make. A man's gotta tell the truth on every shooting coming through. And whoever you think you see, don't lie to me, don't lie to me. Talking but they just don't know. They ain't got no pride no more. Wanna be on TV so bad. They give away all the honor they had. Ain't no way I can see the people gonna listen to me. But I know what I know, and I see more than you'll ever show. A man's gotta play the game and save the world in his name. Just waiting out there on the edge. There's everything you need to make a fool of yourself. And if you wanna know the score, if that's what you're waiting for, don't look at me a hotel. You better get out and see for yourself. Don't lie to me. Don't you lie to me. Don't you lie to me. You know I hate that shit, baby. Don't lie to me. Don't lie to me. Honey, can't you see? Don't lie to me. Don't lie to me.
I feel overlit.
Overlit?
Yeah.
Going too fast?
No, because your dark background is so dark. Your mine is so bright.
Oh, I gotcha.
Overlit.
Well, actually, that's the only lighting for my side. My salt lamps, all the bulbs burned out in them when
That kind of works.
I had my last power outage. See, I almost disappear when you get darker.
That's true.
Which I'm fine with.
This works.
No, I'm fine with just being a voice floating in the darkness.
Yeah, but the audience wants to see your face. There's the talent, my man. Oh my
No,
God.
and so
Yeah.
from that song, I think the line where he says, "A man's got to tell the truth, and if it's good, he don't need proof." I think that line, like actually, that whole song's full of lines that I think are fairly profound. But I think that's one of the upsides of telling the truth all the time, taking that vow of honesty that both Harris and Peterson agree on. Is you don't have to worry about proving anything, because if you're telling the truth, you feel very free to be like, "Fine, you don't believe me? Go figure it out for yourself." Like,
Well, they made it scary to be sane, man. They made it scary to be sane. There's a guy I was pointed as like when you troll around the internet enough, people will assign like archetypes they recognize in you to you. Like I mentioned, somebody called me Nero before, and somebody else called me Wonko the Sane. My friend got me into Game of Thrones by telling me that uh, Tyrion and Jaime both reminded me of him, or reminded him of me. So it's like things that'll bait a narcissist's attention, maybe. I don't know. But tell me more about me. What do you see in me? It's like Indra's Web, right?
yep.
It's like, what? That one's showing me what I look like. So there's value in that.
And so what you must show them a fairly different side than you show me then. What made them see all that in you?
Well, I just like the name Wonko the Sane. It was when I was talking about seeing myself as Absalom, uh, the caterpillar in Alice.
Yeah, I have read that, but a long time ago.
Yeah, he's the caterpillar. He's sitting on the caterpillar smoking something. And he goes, "Who are you?" And he's good in the remake with Johnny Depp somehow. But Alan Rickman in the remake.
I've never seen the remake.
So I magically, since this is going to be a recorded video, somebody that can fly a ship can put clips of that right here. And that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is like you're flying a ship, and if we have like a Serenity Firefly touch point or some other, if I can find a different cultural map to use to discuss it with you, there's some things that my experience have taught me that I'd like to have on tape for the crew or the future crew, as the case may be.
I haven't seen Firefly. I've heard good things about it. I've always meant to watch it one day, but I've never seen it. What have I seen with a ship? Well, I know Star Trek, okay. I've seen all of Farscape, if that metaphor helps.
Oh, I don't know. Like there's this white lady on Farscape, and that's all I really remember about it. But the ship metaphor is good. Like you can stretch it from sea to spaceship. From sea to spaceship, we can apply it to the situation of live streaming, a live streaming show, a YouTube channel.
Okay.
That's the ship. The viewership is the ship, I guess, is one way to say it. That's the waters it serves anyway. And like you're familiar with the Joe Rogan.
Yep.
So like your ship doesn't really have a Jamie right now. And we can say that a Jamie is an engineer. Like in Firefly, it'd be the Randy girl who fixes the engine. Clip magic. But depending on like what kind of seas, how big of the seas you want, you and Ryan and the viewership wants the channel to be, like we can benefit from seeing the roles that need to be tended to and what personalities, what positions people fall into that fit that metaphor, that fits that metaphor as a surfing the internet metaphor. Another angle I like to look at it from is Deadwood. It's the gold rush town where Wild Bill Hickok got shot in the back of the head.
Yeah, I only saw a bit of Deadwood. Who was it? I knew someone was watching it, and so I saw a bit of it with them, but it's like I didn't get the story beginning to end.
Basically, there's saloon owners playing the devil roles, and It's just ancient community, an ancient community drama.
Okay.
There's the good guy, and he opens a hardware store, and he helps the lady who's trying to get swindled out of her land, kind of thing. You know, there's those storylines playing out. But the situation is the gold rush, which can be considered where we're at on the internet. Content is gold. It's what goes viral and what impacts lives. It's the most powerful memetics when done right. Millions of people will talk about a video, right? The right video, anyway. You can see what impact Peterson has had on it, for example. So that's the gold in our current situation. And the main characters, one runs a saloon where there's the ladies and the alcohol and all the fun stuff. And the good guy comes in, and he and his buddy open up a hardware store. And so, like, hardware can be seen as the streaming software you use to extract the gold. Like Ryan was complaining about how they're shutting down Hangouts. And we're having to use this Zoom shovel to do what we're doing right now. So those are the different hardwares. And so I think that the role of the engineer would be the person that would also have that knowledge set. And then the person that runs that stuff, like between the hosts and the audience, like that level is there's the technical back end, then there's the navigator or pilot or whatever who does between the audience and the host. Because like that way you don't have to know anything but like what button to press to do this and what button to press to do that. Because that's not your gig. You're like on the Serenity, you might be a fucking what do they call him, preacher? Shepherd. Shepherd is his name. Clip magic. So no, that's basically what I've learned in my experience as a streamer that I wanted to get across to the future crew of this ship. That it's like there's all the roles that need to be done, and like until you get people to do them, you got one person doing all those things. And keep that in mind when they're stressing out about how much they have to do and such. And then the ship becomes like a family, like a cast on a series of a TV show becomes a family. So you got to make sure that the personalities are managed and copacetic and whatnot. So as far as imparting knowledge from the last year of my life, that's what I wanted to get on record before they get me for what I'm about to tell you. They could be coming yeah, let's see what's going on there right now. I gotta find the clip though. What clip did I want to find? Oh yeah. Oh, they probably censored it now. We moved into the age of YouTube censorship, man. I can't believe that stuff. Kathy O'Brien.
See, I know so fucking little about all of this.
Yeah, but you watch videos, so you know what I mean by that, right?
I do watch lots of videos, but as far as internet culture, fucking even how YouTube works, really, I've heard a bit more. I don't even know clearly what the rules are, and yeah, I can also like barely use my computer.
Well, I found a clip. I'm gonna run it and smoke another cigarette, and that's what I was trying to get to. So I have it. This is my cannabis advocacy conspiracy clip.
Okay.
Are you seeing things correctly?
See the screen?
I've been back.
Rastafari. Greetings, brethren, and greetings others that might check out this particular vid right here. This was interesting. We were just looking through some data that we were collecting for Rastafari Intelligence, and we see this this woman right here, victim of MK Ultra. Her name is Kathy O'Brien. Kathy O'Brien. And she's basically giving her firsthand like testimony and account about MK Ultra and mind control. And then at this particular point in the video. It's on the YouTubes. I think it's from 2001. She says something very, very interesting. And I just want to point out this particular book right here. This particular book right here, which is published by the Society, the Lion of Judah Society, and it is named Cannabis Matrix, right? And because of what she says right here, we want to just present a little clip of this. Let's see if we can get the title page. Here we go, right here, Cannabis Matrix. All right, Cannabis Matrix. Now we're going to play the clip and no doubt follow up on it. As we like to say, this particular booklet right here, if you're into or hear about the whole marijuana thing and smoking weed and smoking ganja or smoking marijuana, we would just recommend that you don't bun, right? That you don't burn without it. You don't bun without it. You should really take a read of this right here. All right, the Cannabis Matrix. All right, so we're going to let her clip play, and something very, very interesting because she's testifying to mind control, right? Mind control and what is known as MK Ultra. And if you don't know about it, then just check out a couple of vids and check out her particular vid. So we're going to play it from right here in this lecture, speech, and testimony she's making. All right, so listen up.
The global education system, that which, as I said, is an enormous passion of mine. There's so many aspects that need to be addressed, but I would encourage you, please look at Transformation of America for that information, because Transformation of America was originally written for U.S. congressional intelligence oversight, which means that the facts in there have to be validatable, backed up, and the documentation, the proofs on it are so strong that it's an important bit of information that's not the easiest to read because of the way it was written, but nevertheless, it certainly outlines the covert operations, the fact that the CIA was involved in the so-called war on drugs, which was no more than the CIA eliminating their competition worldwide. Well, they turned our streets into a bloodbath. Since we're here in California, I've got to make mention of one little aspect of this so-called war on drugs that disturbs me very, 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 very deeply. I was exposed to many drugs under mind control. Since my sexuality had been enhanced, the operations that I was used in oftentimes involved some kind of sexual.
Back in time like a jam. I mean, that clip is available. We can make
heroin, and I knew that there would be
a
larger influx of heroin into this country. There was one that was strictly forbidden.
There you go.
That the CIA was in the heroin, and I knew that there would be a larger influx of heroin into this country. Although cocaine is certainly still very, very prevalent, and I know that the CIA and many prominent people were involved in that black budget funding mechanism as well. Of all the drugs I was exposed to, though, there was one that was strictly forbidden, and that was marijuana. Marijuana is strictly forbidden because the effects on the brain actually open those neuron pathways so that any compartmentalization of memory, of any kind of trauma or any kind of so-called secret that's compartmentalized in the brain actually begins to erode. Like what happens to people at the age of 30 when their electrochemical changes happen and their mind expands. That is why they don't want to have even medical marijuana for people who have need and proven need for it.
Blam! That's one of the gems I found in the conspiracy rabbit holes.
I would
Why?
think that they wouldn't want. I have no idea if MK Ultra exists or not. But like hypothetically, if it does, like just to accept her framework, I would assume mushrooms would be in the discouraged with marijuana as well.
They were, to me, as a person growing up, they were rare enough not to be considered with the stuff that was readily accessible, like coke, et cetera, et cetera. It's like they were always harder to get, even for the people who did them. So I think because you can go them in your closet probably, and the people that did them just kept it for themselves. But you know, freedom grow a plant and whatnot. But that was always my excuse for being okay with, you know, you can do it recreationally, but you can also do it to recreate yourself.
Okay, but also, why the fuck do you even need an excuse?
Because that was one of the constructs of my dominant personality structure.
Yeah, but notice like, and okay, so like the premise set up here, and I don't want to argue with anyone about what it's like in the States at different times and places, but like the premise is the government or whatever conspiracy is allowing heroin, is allowing cocaine in these things, and is limiting marijuana. And you know, various people have various conspiracies, or the idea that it was the alcohol companies that pushed it or whatever. But whatever reason, all of that fucking reefer madness came out and the law made it illegal.
Hearst. We trace it down to Hearst and the paper mills mainly.
Okay. But who gives a fuck? You don't seem like a person to me that needs to give a fuck what society says. It's like,
well, they make it sound like you get sodomized in jail, so you don't want to ever go to jail. And in some places, it's not legal, so that's why one would give a fuck.
Okay, I can understand the fear of getting caught breaking a law. But now that marijuana, it seems like if they did have that conspiracy to try to stop marijuana access to the North American population, it seems they've lost that.
Yeah,
So
that was from the 80s. So
yeah, from here forward, I can't imagine anyone's going to have a whole lot of trouble getting high if that's what they feel like doing. But I do agree with you that it's like everything. Before Enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After Enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Before Enlightenment, smoke marijuana. And, you know, after Enlightenment, smoke marijuana, perhaps, if that's your nature. But it's entirely different. It can be so many. Well, first of all, some things I don't think necessarily, as much as I love weed, I don't think it's necessarily good for everyone. You know, everything affects everyone differently. But even for those of us that marijuana is good for us, it does nothing on its own. You can do anything and be caught in a bad psychological model and be hating it. You know, you could chop wood and carry water every day and hate that and always want things to be different and just be like, and you can be full of, yeah, like you can do all the 7 deadly sins while smoking weed. You can do them all without smoking weed. You can avoid them all while smoking weed. You can avoid them all without. Who does what drugs? To me, it's like whatever drugs are good for you, then fucking fine.
beat Zoloft as far as I'm concerned. And a lot of my work has been medical, so I see how much it's like they're the drug dealers with the white coats. That's what's going on there.
So, like for instance, it seems to me like you're struggling with whether or not it's like how much it's recreational and how much it's medicinal for you.
No, that was just a nugget, man.
Oh, okay.
From one of my rabbit holes, because I feel like to get back to the ship metaphor, I spent a lot of time on this island over here, and so I wanted to like sit around the campfire and tell stories, and that was one of the gem stories I found on that island of the truther community. So I just wanted to share that with people. But I don't know. It's a struggle for some people. So those are the internal arguments that they have to wrestle down.
Yeah, I wonder how much the average person deals with that. In fact, just the other night, I was talking to my wife about how I was looking through comments on like my videos recently, and like thinking about, because you know all that shit about how every negative comment people say sticks with you and you don't notice all the positives. Like I was being mindful of all that and observing it. Lately, I was looking at the way, trying to figure out how some people see me, and I'm really not sure. But it suddenly made me think like, fuck, I could really strongly tell that I have no idea what the surrounding people are like for most of you. I've been a full 10 years now, completely cut off from society pretty much.
You're basically a time traveler.
It's living in my own world, but aside from that, I went into a different dimension. Like not only did I stop interacting with society 10 years ago, I also stepped away from the normal way of living and moved into a completely, like I feel I'm more in a different dimension. And
the rest of us want to get there?
I've been living certain ways so long that I kind of went a bit senile and forgot what normal people were even like. Because I was saying to my wife something about like, it seems like certain people are really saying like, look how good you are, how blah, blah, blah. It's like, they seem really appreciative of this. My wife was just like, yeah, you don't realize how many people out there like have nobody to talk to that honestly cares about what they're going through the way you do. And fuck, especially the more and more, and I don't get that much news. I watch a bit of the late night shows on YouTube and I watch a bit of Tim Pool. And, you know, you get a bit of news and shit through Rogan and a bit of other comedy. That's sort of what I know about the world. It's getting weirder and fucking weirder to me. And
us too. It's getting weirder and weirder to us too. So you're not alone in that. That's why, like, people, like, essentially, my opinion is Saturnalia, Santa Claus, is basically they set you up to let you know what being in this society is going to be like. Even your parents will lie to you and tell you there's a fat man watching what you do, going to come into your house and give you gifts or not, judging your behavior.
the other thing, though, is it's neat now that we've got more communication, that doesn't seem like as many people are noticing this, is how much all of that local cultural structure that you see imposed on you and that way of looking at the world that's programmed into you is so fucking different, city to city or state to state. Or like Colin Quinn has a comedy special, Red State, Blue State, where he talks about how, like, they had it right in the old days. Like, they understood that every 700 miles or whatever, everybody thinks completely differently. And then like his argument's America's too big. It's a failed experiment. He's like, break it down into other countries so we can stop arguing over shit. Let's just realize people are really fucking different in different areas. So whatever all of that.
Yeah, pushing the end of the New World Order agenda, fragmentation. I'm just playing, man. That's just how bad it gets over here.
Yeah, and so I wonder how different it is from area to area out there.
I think it's like Peterson said with the, like, a field of pyramids, right? You're gonna have red pyramids here and blue pyramids and purple pyramids or whatever in each place. They're franchised. We're pressed under the McDonald's monoculture. So I mean, there's the shared pop cultural diet of socialized normal behaviors, norms, like when they parade trans children on Good Morning America, and drag, because yay. When that's dictating the norms of the culture to the urban centers, and then the rurals are busy milking their cows and not watching all that programming and living life like normal people, it is like two different realities. And it manifests mainly as blue versus red, but it's way deeper than that. That's just what people get exposed to.
Even that farmer archetype you mentioned there, which I agree, like feels more naturally human. Even that, though, is surprisingly cultural. There are so many ways to live more naturally. You might be surprised how much programming some farmers have. It's just very different than what you have. But
I have a lot of road tripping lately, my last couple of years. So I've driven through, like, I didn't know they had Amish in Colorado and stuff like that. So
cool.
Road tripping is the best. It's my favorite in the world.
One advantage of like agricultural life is you've got to work with nature. So you have to recognize a certain amount of reality or you won't get anywhere. And working with animals and shit puts you in touch with a lot of those elements of nature that I think inform the soul, sort of, or, you know, the deeper parts of you. But it's also easy to over romanticize everybody living the farming life. But regardless of wherever the fuck you're stuck, you have so much power to change your experience of it. Like you said, how our axioms we hold to or whatever are like those pillars in the water that direct flow.
Right.
It's amazing how much you can alter your experience of anything, and how much what you might think is the obvious thing to think, someone else can find a way to think the exact opposite. It's like what's popping to mind is I can remember Sam Harris referencing, and he even said these people like are like this is pathological level of compassion, but that he was pointing out the variability of human experience. And he said there are actually monks who have been freed from like decades of torture. And he's like, when we're talking torture, like electricity to the genitals torture, he's like, and they actually come out of there saying the worst part of those decades were fearing that they would push me so far that I would lose my compassion for my torture. And he pointed out that he even thinks that is pathological, like that's gone too far. But he's pointing out you would be amazed, because for many of us, captured and being tortured, we would assume the only logical thought is to plot revenge against our torture. Like as if that's obvious. That's the only thing you can think. That's the only thing you can experience. But no, it is possible to experience torture. And for your greatest concern to be, please let this not make me lose my compassion to this poor lost soul trapped in this horrendous behavior. And you have, like, whether you're in a dystopia or not.
Embrace the Stockholm Syndrome. Embrace the Stockholm Syndrome.
You don't even have to embrace it. You transcend it. That doesn't mean you don't want out. It doesn't mean to transcend a situation doesn't mean you wouldn't do what you can to improve it. But it means you're wise enough to know what you can and can't improve. So you don't get like Abe and run around going, our society's broken. I've got to cut it open and fix it.
I've got to fix it.
Even these people, like you were saying, like the transgender children and these parents that are going too far and these activists, I think that's an example of Abe. They're seeing something's wrong in society and they're trying to like, we can do a lot of damage by seeing what's wrong and trying to fix what we can't fix. Yet, that doesn't mean to give up. Like, to fall into that more to the Tao, to the Wu way, that doesn't mean no action. It means no forcing. And also, to allow the rest of the universe its agency as well. Like, because really, if we're ending the world right now, if that's the game we're playing, if we're 5 years away from nukes or 10 years away from finally whatever natural catastrophe from climate change, whatever it is, if that's overall what everyone else picked, fine. You and me can still play whatever game we want within this. We can interact with this very differently, especially if you can transcend the pain, or if you can learn to see every difficult thing around you as an opportunity for growth. That's training equipment. If you are some sort of eternal soul, the ability to enter into an area with so much mind control, to realize your own true nature within that, and to learn to act according to your true will, despite environmental pressures, that's a skill I can believe translating into different realms of consciousness. You know the way people talk about all your earthly treasures, you can't take it with you, and all this shit you work for crumbles to dust. Yet perhaps certain mental, emotional, and spiritual functions are real tools that we can carry forward. To be able to have compassion, sympathy, love, yet also not to force our will on the world around us, and to live good despite all circumstances, to learn to control ourselves in various extreme mental and emotional states. And again, it's very much like drugs. Learn to handle your shit if you want to party. You can handle your shit. People give you
That's the best. Say it again.
People
Say
give
it
you
again, Sam.
access to the whole fucking, you know what I mean? The dealer's like, yeah, when he likes you, go ahead, take whatever you want. Because he knows you can take that shit and handle it. You're not going to get anyone arrested. You're not going to smash everything up. You're not going to kill his cat. You're not going to freak out and piss yourself and start crying. Learn to handle your extreme mental states, your emotional states. And you have increased access, perhaps, to quite a bit in other dimensions where perhaps mental and emotional and spiritual forces are the actual fabric of reality.
I like that. What was this? What was the 3-worded saying though? No, wait, it was 6 words. Say it again.
Fuck, I don't know what I just said.
It was.
What, learn to handle your shit?
Yeah, but it was like a cutesy little couplet version of that.
I don't know. I
We'll
fucking
clip it. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I loved it. It reminds me of like we're all time travelers. We just forgot why we came back. Yeah. But it's wild, man. It's like that whole scene ends up feeling like you're watching a Special Victims Unit marathon on USA, and then you realize you're the type of person that watches the Special Victims Unit marathon on USA. So you know, I don't know. We like to call it the global awakening, and I think that's really good because my biggest thing is like they got robots do what you do now. So what are you gonna do? And I think that's
or we've got robots.
wow.
You've excluded us from them.
I don't buy stock in corporations, man.
Yeah.
I don't have any ownership of what's going on.
No, even without that. Pre-ownership. We, as humanity, collectively, as this group of souls, have access to that technology now. Now, perhaps only some of us are deciding what to do with it. That's still us. That's still we.
Fair. Until we can prove they're shape-shifting lizards. Fair. I'm not saying we're not going to prove it.
Even then, it's we. Because it's we with the bacteria in our body, and it's we with the trees and the flowers and the apes, and it's we with the angels and the demons.
Oh, you hit me with the Buddha superpower.
It's all fucking we. And who knows that even they're not doing us a favor? Okay. Isn't this an interesting, exciting life? Would you rather be just fucking tending a small herd your whole life and you've never traveled further than you can walk and you don't know how to read?
Depends on the herd.
Well, and no, and not that there's not a great value to that other life, and perhaps especially stuck in this life. It's easy to romanticize that one. But look at the fucking fiction you're drawn to. We love a dark rush. We love a seemingly hopeless moment and then suddenly finding a way. We love that shit. So like you've heard that Alan Watts. He says, what if you could control what you dreamed every night?
Wouldn't it end up being this over the course of infinity?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that eventually, you know, you'd want to start forgetting you were dreaming, and then you'd want to put yourself in more perilous situations, and we'd end up like children, daring each other. How far can you go? How hard can you make it? I dare you to go into this Griswold Grimm life, and look how fucking lost you'll get. And I dare you to forget this much. And you're like, yeah, I can fucking do that. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm going to cook you after this.
The same way that we love to go on a fucking haunted walk or see some movie that actually scares the shit out of us.
Oh, but this is the cookie we get at the end. So
So what's going on with the, like, are you just interested in conspiracies, or is there one in particular that you take very serious? Like, okay, belief in Peterson's sense of the word belief. Does it shape your action? What shapes your action? Like, what do you believe about the world? Is there a global new world order? Is there some sort of conspiracy?
It's the
Agenda to
Egyptian priesthood.
It's the Egyptian priesthood followed through till now?
Yeah, they made the tribes scapegoats. Like the Moses thing was a psyop, essentially.
Okay, so right back from Moses forward is all
Yeah,
there.
they've still been running things. That was their idea.
And
They're,
so the whole Bible is that a controlled opposition? Is that like a glamour they made up? Is that what you mean?
I'm very I'd like to have smart people who research and look deeply into things, look into a comparison of the Bible and what's in the Nag Hammadi. Because, like, as a doubter, the Gospel of Thomas always spoke to me, even though it was first presented to me in an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, if I'm not mistaken. But what is said in the Gospel of Thomas and the whole Gnostic vibe is really making a lot of sense these days.
Doesn't the Gospel of Thomas have the people seek the kingdom of God and do not realize it lies before them, split a piece of wood, it is there, lift a stone and it is there. So it's not, the shit I was saying before isn't just Buddhist, it's also Gospel of Thomas Jesus. This dystopia you see, that is also the kingdom of God laid right before you. Pick up any piece of wood and split it. Like, yeah, just look anywhere. But the splitting or looking underneath is the see through it. Be mindful of your experience. Be fully aware of what's going on. And you can experience it differently.
Okay, so like on a fundamental what is reality level, from the pseudoscientific angle of science, the guy who did the Higgs boson theory, which made all that big hubbub about the God particle and the Higgs boson field, when he submitted his paperwork, it had infinity in it, that it was part of an infinite field, essentially fabric of the universe, and that's where you would find these particles. Okay. And they made him cut out the infinite field part before they do the test, before they approve his experiment. But the Higgs boson particle, the God particle, is the particle that determines the mass of the other particles, which is essentially the particle that makes mass matter, because it gives matter, it's matter when it's mass, and that's the particle that gives the other particles mass. And if that's love, then the universe is made from infinite love on a fabric of the universe level.
Okay, yeah, I could vibe with that.
And so that's the foundation of my reality, and then the conspiracy stuff is all built from that substructure.
And so it's
like, oh man, you got to go play Hitler? I don't want to play Hitler. Hitler, dude? No, I don't want to play Hitler. That's what you got to play. That's your role for this incarnation, bro. Just suck it up and be Hitler, whatever. Like
I agree with you. The role of Hitler is bad, and I would say it's worse than the role of you've got to be in a concentration camp. I think I'm the other side. When it's like, hey, do you want to be Hitler or do you want to be someone who dies in the concentration camp? You'd be like, fuck, no, I'm not feeling up to a Hitler life. That's too rough. I'll just take the camp.
So, I mean, we get attached to being this collection of the way this meat, this spongy thing processes information. That's what we want to exist forever. The thing that really tripped me about Christianity is when I realized that they were suggesting that we were an infinite immortal soul that didn't exist until this life. Was like part of the main sales pitch. Like we were a new and original soul. Whereas a lot of other faiths mention reincarnation and such, which makes
Even
more sense
reincarnation.
if you're an infinite soul.
Although
That
even
this will be your only
reincarnation,
ride.
often you've got to have a first incarnation, and where did you come from there? It's just like when people talk about did we not arise here on our own? Like, did aliens seed life? Reincarnation's the same as that. It just makes the question jump back, though. Like, wait, well, where did they come from? Or even if they were seeded, eventually some form of life had to evolve here, unless it came from another dimension. So I think even with reincarnation, unless somehow this has been going on eternally, and we've always been reincarnating, but I think even with that, you've got to come out of source, yet things are beyond time within source. That's so incomprehensible that I'm fine to say that somehow we're eternal, even though at a certain point we came out of source.
Well, there's the Akashic Records variant. It's like, even if we have a history of sweeping floors for 70 years, it's written down somewhere and recorded into this actually happened. You know, that'll always exist angle.
Or some like theories of reality now even suggest that perhaps the entire past and present physically exist. That's not a completely unjustifiable thing to be considering. It's like perhaps even the Akashic Record is just the fact that all of time exists. You know, like the way I think is it Brian Greene described it, like almost imagine space-time to be like a slice of bread or something, but like time expand, like the universe expands and we move through time, but that none of it disappears. And some people wonder even like also that the future already exists and we're just moving into it, but that all of time and space is eternal. And fuck yeah, I could very easily get into spoilers with Jerusalem here, actually.
It's supposed to be here next week, and then I'm gonna do I'm gonna like, I guess, read a section and then post my thoughts on that section in the Discord and put the time I'm gonna do it again. So if anybody wants to play along book clubbish wise, we can all drop what we thought about the last section on the same day, kind of thing. See how.
Yeah, no, I'd be interested in that, and I think I might read some of the chapters as you do. Even like I loved that book, and I would totally like go through it and read bits here and there.
I like it because in our society, at least the culture that I've been exposed to, shared memetics like that, like Dune, where like I can tell you that my favorite scene is when his sister's getting whacked and the Barons inside are asking, "Who's crying? Who's crying?" You know, but that I think Jerusalem's a good one because if we find powerful works that have comprehensive maps of the archetypes, we'll have better touchstones for the type of discussions and philosophies we deal with, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But beyond that focus on connection or sharing it all, the biggest changes you can make are things that you can't really share directly. It ends up being shared in that when your nature changes, you become different and you can share different kinds of interaction with people. But your deepest changes are things you can't share. It's just really beyond words, and it's when you can get fully present with who you are and what you're experiencing and open up a few different levels of yourself. Be amazed how differently you can experience things, but just that it's not too often people do things focused on telling it to someone else or sharing it, or how many people are focused more on getting the right photos for social media at events than being at the fucking event.
The disconnect. Everything's connected, disconnected. It's beautiful, peaceful banshee.
As much as I like, and I absolutely love that you're so involved with sorting myself out and that you want to create more community and all that. I think all of that's wonderful. But be aware that some of the most valuable things you can, like for instance, that you could get out of Jerusalem, perhaps even, or out of doing Ryan's Sacred Flip or going more personal. You've got to do the things for the sake of doing them. You've got to make the change for the sake of being it, even if some aspects of it can't be shared, even if others may not recognize it, even if it doesn't change anything seemingly in the outer world. And it will eventually change things in the outer world. And it can deepen what you can, other things. It's almost like you said, how that particle gives other things mass. Mm. So imagine there are things you can find in yourself that no one will perceive it directly, but that it can add a mass to other parts of you that affect people.
All right, what do you see as manifestations of those, like, pieces that are added mass? Do you have examples you can think of? Like archetypal roles?
Yeah, like for instance, perhaps you can better embody an archetypal role once you've made some of these changes. And you can learn how to embody, you can learn the nature of finding the good and bad in everything. So that when you go to step into a certain role, you may not know the details of that role, but as details present themselves, you have a good feel for good and bad. You know how to follow an internal compass that allows whatever you step into, all you've got to learn is your technical proficiencies. You will do it well on that deeper spiritual level, whatever it is. And so, like, for instance, in me, there are these things that I cannot explain to you. But it seems to show in that, like, people are commenting I'm very good at making connections with people. You see all these ways I'm helping people from different parts of myself. Sometimes it's to access my depression and to connect with someone. Sometimes it's to access, but also the way I barely know what the fuck I'm doing online. Why is anyone watching? And my video quality is so fucking low. And it's just, why the fuck is anyone paying attention? Why can I make connections with people? Why can I care so much about a stranger and get past my own self-interest? They're because of these inner connections that I can't show directly. But all of those things in me that people are thanking me for. And that just, especially, like, you see how it all just happened on its own as well. Like, I had all kinds of those messianic illusions. And, you know, false messiah shit. I had all kinds of that. And even when I'm manic, like, one of my subpersonalities is just a false messiah. He thinks he's a fucking genius and he can fix everything. I'm aware enough to know you put him in charge, though, and you can end up with aid behavior or all kinds of nonsense. I'm aware of that now. And I was completely detached from needing to make a difference.
What also, kind of behavior? Did you say ape behavior?
Abe. Again, I was referencing Abe with the...
Fixing it with a knife. Right.
Wait, fuck, what the fuck is it? Okay. And I was not trying to force anything on anything anymore. And I think part of that chop wood, carry water thing matches with, I think it was maybe Alan Watts said, no, it wasn't Alan Watts. I forget who said it, but somebody said that enlightenment is just like everyday life, but 2 inches higher. That you see.
Yeah, it's like you're one of the zombies climbing the wall, man. Everybody's like, ooh. And like some people find it inspirational.
And I'm not making claims to have achieved enlightenment. I've achieved all kinds of strange states. I don't know. And different people mean different things by enlightenment. But as far as alternate states of consciousness, that I would consider more enlightened than my previous ones. So in a kind of scale, that when you're early on that and you see the potential, you want to change the world. But then you get a little farther and you're like, oh, wait, I don't need to change the world. This is fine. Everyone can play their games. I don't have to worry about anything. I can just follow my inner nature. And I had given up all of that shit. And then just opened up to the universe. If you need anything from me, send me people that need my help. And it was, you know, it was more in my personal life and shit. And then eventually it just fell into this. And I had no plan from the beginning with this. Even remember, like I said, my early ritual was just all defined on good with a capital G, even if it meant failure of the channel. I was totally giving up.
You're very, very good at saying even if it meant failure, but like you got to also consider even if it means raging success.
Yeah, and I have more trouble with that one. There's a part of me that the minute you said that was like, oh, fuck you. But yes, I'm accepting even if it's a big fucking success. And this means, yeah, I've realized, fuck, and it happened quickly. I realized, like, oh shit, I could be stuck doing this the rest of my fucking life. Like, fuck, a couple people have really responded. This seems to actually be making a difference. At this point, I may have no choice. Like, given my nature, I may be stuck doing this. If it continues to grow, it continues to be helpful, and I can do it, I may be, like, I don't know if I can even see the free will in it anymore.
Well, to that extent, I think you have the angle of, like, if you're a good judge of character of the people you are close to the team, then as it grows, the team will insulate you to the extent you need to be insulated.
I don't think I need to be insulated, though, because the same way as, like, when you hear Tim Pool say if he ever gets banned, he's going to be like, all right, fuck it. That's the excuse I needed to go to a skate park. If anything ever went bad with this, it's like, all right, okay, fuck it. I don't have to do this.
No, but I mean, to the extent that doing it is hard on you and, you know, you don't burn out and whatnot. Like you,
yeah.
So the doing it for the rest of your life isn't a thing of dread, but like,
no, it's only part
package,
of me
right?
that reacts, fuck you. There's lots of parts of me that, are
but
happy.
you speak fuck you is like necessary for the role that you're playing, and like what you're doing, you have to be able to understand where fuck you is coming from. So it's great that that's part of you.
But it's not because I need to know how to do that to do what I need to do at this channel. It's because I need to do that to survive this life. My shit's too extreme for me not to keep it in order this way. Like, the reason I learned this level of mindfulness, this level of compassion and forgiveness, it's fucking survival tools. Otherwise, it's brutal. If I stuck to lying, blaming other people, fucking carrying grudges and all of that shit, I'd still be going in and out of mental hospitals, or I wouldn't have been able to make it through the suicidal depressions. That's been the advantage for me, is it's like you either master all of these extreme conditions, like you either master this fucking dragon of a nervous system you've been given, or you're going to destroy yourself. Like, I really would have killed myself in my last manic psychosis. It was months of, and like, I'm phobic of going to a hospital or getting locked up really badly. And I was aware of my rights and had been locked up before. So when I started getting really manic and people like, maybe you should go to the hospital, I was just, fuck you, everybody fuck off. And I'm going to, if I'm not hurting myself and I'm not, but it was months and months of, I was just living off of coffee, and I was eating like a couple crackers a day, or like one egg every other day. And I was sleeping just 15, 20 minutes a night for a month. And then next it was 15 minutes every other night. And at the end, I can remember towards the end, it felt like wires were smoking in me, and like the engine was just turning red hot, and reality was like vibrating, and fucking, I can remember being just like both exhausted and wired. There's a million thoughts going through my head. And I'm also exhausted. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go lay down and go to sleep. I think I can fall asleep. And I lay down and fell asleep and woke up and looked at the clock, and it had been 3 minutes. And I woke up just like, whoosh, and on. And then like when the cops finally found me, I was just, and I don't know how long I've been doing it. But I think like for a full day, for 3 days, I had been experiencing that it was the end of the world, and that I thought everything outside, there was all these various delusions. When the cops finally found me, I had been for I don't know how long, locking myself in rooms and then like breaking the window. I'd like lock myself into a room, break the window, climb out of the house, go around, break another window, climb in, run through door. Like I was just, and I smashed all the lights. I'd cut my hand and I was still just like running around. The doctor said I was extremely close to just killing myself from exhaustion and lack of food. And
Or you jumped through like 8 different versions of reality and found one that worked. Right? What really went on that night? We don't know. We don't know.
actually,
But
yeah,
you made it
I
through.
don't know how much is. Yeah, we don't know if dream realms are actually some sort of malleable, more ethereal reality. I don't know how much. Yeah, I don't know if the angels and gods I talk to are all conceived of by my own consciousness or if there's any reality to it, but it's
But
all.
you made it through. How did? Was it meditation that got you the control you have now?
Like so many things, I don't even know to separate anyone. I would like if I had to separate one thing, it was just isolation. That was what I needed. I needed to completely not worry about the world. And after my second psychotic break, it's like the government automatically put me on permanent disability. I'd been on like a temporary disability before and in a work program trying to open like a tattoo shop, and I was like learning to tattoo. But afterwards, the doctors were just like, whoa, 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 no, we got to stop, trying
play
to
well with others.
yeah, just we're going to put you on permanent disability. Like your full-time job is just not to have a breakdown or kill yourself. And my parents rented me a place, and it's where like my wife and kids live now. It's a farm just right over there. Like it just so happened that was open for rent. My parents arranged it, just dumped me off. They gathered up the shit from my old place and moved it over for me. And my dad just took care of everything for me. Like I didn't do anything. My dad
When you just got out of the hospital, they treated you like someone who just got out of the hospital.
Yeah, but like
There was a lot of custom treatment, right?
My dad took care of like everything. I didn't know how much my check was. I didn't know what my rent was. And they just even decided my groceries. They knew the kind of shit I liked. And yeah, my dad just dropped me off my supplies, and other than that, left me alone. And I was free to just focus on myself. And it's a nice little house where you can't see anyone else. All you can see is woods. Or where I'm living now, it's much more open. There's lots of fields, but I can't see any neighbor's house. I can very much live in my own world. And for me, I had to be humble enough to set the priority of my goal is not to kill myself when I'm depressed and not to go totally psychotic and need to be locked up. That was it. That was my whole goal in life. I had to lower myself to that. When I'm manic, I just need to keep it under control enough that no one needs to step in, that my parents don't need to be worried, that I don't cause problems for anyone else. That was like my line. Anything other than that, like whatever. It didn't matter how fucking crazy I was being, as long as it wasn't damage to myself and as long as it wasn't causing problems to others. And other than that, don't kill myself when I'm depressed. I humbled myself to that. That alone was enough that I couldn't handle anything else. And I didn't have a phone.
Start of your hero's journey.
Yeah, and I didn't have a phone or the internet there, and I didn't have a car for the first 2 years I lived there. I was just on my own, and supplies got dropped off. And also, yeah, there were plenty of times where I wouldn't see anyone for a week or two, like at all. Like not even to see someone walk by or have a message. So it's that real isolation also of knowing, you trip and break your legs falling down the stairs. There's no phone. There's no, it's whenever someone checks on you. But yeah, I just had to devote myself to that. And for the first fucking few years, like once I devoted myself to that, my cycle dropped down to a 1-year cycle. And I found I could get through it, but just barely. And
How many years in before you started to find an outlet for the manic energy?
Well, it was as soon as I realized, it was a large part, actually, yeah, perhaps step one, even before the choosing those humble goals. Yeah, there was a step before that, I should have said. Step one is to realize I was fucking bipolar, whatever that it means, and to deal with that. Because before that, Yeah, before that, after the first cycle, I was trying to go back to normal. And like professionals were telling me it was possible. You know, maybe this is a one-time, like a one-cycle thing. Maybe you're not bipolar, but if you go into another cycle, we'll know for sure. And then after the second one, when I got put on permanent disability, that was the first struggle, was to accept it. And it was really hard not to fucking kill myself before I got that accepted at the beginning of that depression. Because I did not want to be, I had all that old stigma of just, that's the worst fucking failure, to be some pathetic, embarrassing lunatic.
Did you go into ideations?
Oh, yeah. I allowed myself to fantasize about killing myself all the time. And I would try to stop my heart with meditation. That felt fair. I'd meditate for hours trying to stop my heart. A few times I tried to swallow my tongue. I'm not sure if that counts as a meditate, like as an attempt or not. You know what I mean? Or sort of played with swallowing my tongue to see if I could. But no, lots of time it was just, I found I had to actively fantasize about it almost all day for long periods of time, where it was just pretty much all I was ever thinking.
So you learned to meditate for ulterior motives, but you still learn to meditate.
Oh, spend enough time alone, especially without internet, without phone, without anything. You just start to fucking do it. You just start to become more mindful when you're really, like with all that free time, I would just start to, you know, in the summer, just fucking sit outside and watch the ants. Like at first it can feel pathetic. Like, look at me, I'm hidden away from the world. I can't handle life. I'm just sitting here staring at a bunch of ants. You know, like the one summer I was depressed through it.
Well, yeah, but it's also like Walden. He wrote a whole thing on it. So
yeah, exactly.
You're a writer not putting out output.
Then you start to notice the depth of the smallest experiences. Then you start, and yeah, you have to become mindful when you're fucking bipolar. But you got to notice the beginning of that mania to start getting it under control. You got to be aware of those suicidal impulses and not let them build up more.
And so all this was stuff you at least took or had as a plate spinning before the humbling, or some of it came after?
There were so many moments of intense change temporarily, and then changing back, and then gradually the more permanent changes came on. And a lot of things were gradual.
Would you say you went through phases where you did a thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I went through phases once I accepted it where I tried to focus on the more medical for a while, especially, you know, once I had internet again, and, you know, I was like doing research on the medical side of it and trying to there's a time period especially where, one phase of it was to get very embarrassed of ever believing in the reality of any of it, and trying to manage it for a certain time period while looking at it totally psychologically. And before being integrated enough that the believing parts and the embarrassed scientific parts could exist together at all. You know, I noticed how much they're opposing things, but it used to be that they couldn't be present together. I've learned to sort of integrate a lot of this stuff, or make spaces large enough to encompass both, where I can accept that there's multiple frameworks to look at it from, and that we don't know which is true, and that different parts of me and different types of intuition tell me different things. But
would you say that those structures are built on things you have come to accept, like each acceptance is part of a staircase to where you are today, kind of thing?
Yeah, and you learn to step into different ways of thought. And wait, who is it who said that, like, in a way to understand something is to believe it? That to understand an argument, you have to be temporarily believing it and really seeing the world from that point of view, or you don't understand. Like, to really understand an ideology, you sort of have to believe it. Otherwise, you can't understand it. Look at an ideology you can't understand. You clearly don't believe it. And so I've had to, like, I have
Change beliefs
states
like
where,
T-shirts.
I have states where I can fully see that there's no free will, the way Sam Harris talks. That vibes fully, and that was a painful one to learn. Getting into that state, the no free will, like that's the reality, that one really hurt to learn that one. Like it really hurt to try to believe it, and I'd have to try to work on that understanding, walk away from it, and like just go back to, no, I'm going to think as if there's free will, go into it, and it's like it would fucking hurt my head. And then one day I managed to get all the way in and see it. And it wasn't from studying free will. It was something on my own. Like, spend enough time alone and you start to go, wait a minute, do I have free will at all?
So that would be a process, like you'd say that when you say going into it, it really was like what, self-observation?
Yeah, it was like you're just sitting staring at ants, and then one day you can see meaning in it. I was just, like I was living life, and one day I was like, wait a minute, am I really making choices here? And at that point, like I hadn't read any or heard any Sam Harris at the point that I took that on. But the one thing I'd heard somewhere that just suddenly seemed to mean so much was in one of the Matrix movies. The Oracle says to Neo, he says that he doesn't know what decision to make. And she says, you're not here to make any of the decisions. You've already made them. You're here to find out why you made them. And I could see very much how much the life we live could be that we'd made all our decisions ahead of time, and now we're acting them out. And I was like, oh shit. But then on that higher level, it becomes like, well, was that really making any decisions? You have to imagine almost a realm higher. And then it becomes, like Sam Harris says, it becomes infinite. It's turtles on top of turtles, trying to find free will in ever higher atmospheres of the esoteric. And there's a part of me that can just now so comfortably fall into that view where, shit, like, I don't see how free will exists at all. You have an inherent nature and an environment, and you will do what your inherent nature is in any given environment. Like,
yeah.
I also have the part of me that still believes in free will, like on that intuitive emotional level. I can see mysterious signs of it, but now me overall, I've recognized that if there's free will, it's something far more mysterious than it seemed before. And I now, like as a greater self, am comfortable with both of those viewpoints existing inside, and I have a large enough space to encompass both. And I keep in mind that it can be seen either way or experienced either way, and that perhaps both or neither are true, or both and neither are true, that reality's just so beyond us that you begin to learn juggling different ways of looking at things. And also, especially with things where you're like, I don't know if it's true, that this is true or this, you begin to examine if you can step in and out of each one. Well, what would I do in this given situation if I'm looking at it from framework A? What would I do in this situation from framework B? Then someone's like, wait a minute, you look for the Venn diagram of that. What overlaps?
Dude, the art of Venn. That's one of my shticks, the art of Venn. Like looking at how take seemingly unrelated things and overlap them and see what's the same. I love that.
And like, I think one thing, like I haven't studied enough Ken Wilber, I just listened a little, but like with this idea of more integral society, I think one thing to look for is even where people live very, very differently, we're so focused on the differences. Where are these Venn diagrams overlapping? And where are
the archetypes
groups? Where do they agree? And where do they complement each other? And can we set up a pattern according to the Venn diagrams of human interaction to maximize the way we work together and to make space in the pattern for those areas that everyone else disagrees with, where it flows with the overall pattern, even though certain areas are just one color.
As long as Vegas stays in Vegas. All
yeah,
right.
And as long as the border's not so hard that people from that you get some filters, some osmosis that people from the too uptight areas can visit when they need to and throw off. But the same way in yourself, if you notice all these different parts, well, where do they all work together and be most focused on that? And then you start to notice you know, say this one personality does one thing that doesn't overlap with anything else. It's to be aware of when to bring that tool out. Like, okay, maybe it doesn't usually fit into everything, but there might be certain situations.
Sundays
where,
and
hey,
Wednesdays. That's the gospel.
and there's a time to plant and a time to weed and a time to harvest.
You got a band that does that you like?
It's just about knowing when to bring each out. Don't express your inner harvester in the spring.
Hey now. That's interesting. Well, all I'm getting is closing statements from the wrong movie. I was going to play a clip. No, I am not. I do want to go smoke, though. You got one?
When you showed the Crow one, because it's that same movie clip site, one of my favorites they've got up is from X-Men. Fuck, which movie is it? X-Men First Class. Magneto and Mystique. And it's when he's... Wait, let me check.
I got a kiss scene.
No, for a minute I was acting as if I can't search myself.
Yeah, but if you tell me what you bring up.
You'd be surprised how often I don't think to look things up online still, even having had internet for years and years.
It's so much easier once you have the phone as part of your cyborg body.
Actually, often though, sometimes I avoid looking things up that I'm thinking about because I want time to think about it on my own before I get too much other info.
All right, I'm going to go grab a smoke. You got anything?
Yeah, let me, okay. X-Men First Class, number 4. Number 4 movie clip. Half paying attention.
Half paying attention?
Yeah.
Yes, I was. Aren't you synchronicity? Wait, I gotta do the. That's only 56 seconds. Hold on. Share. Thingy. Share. You see it?
Yep.
Alright, where's my. I'm just gonna let it run. I'm not responsible for what plays after.
Okay.
I'll be back.
If you're using half your concentration to look normal, then you're only half paying attention to whatever else you're doing. Just pointing out something that could save your life. You want society to accept you, but you can't even accept yourself.
So, you've checked out the pool, you've listened to Madame Butterfly, you've eaten some scallops.
You're forgetting the crushed peas.
I thought mentioning the scallops would bring the peas to mind.
Crushed peas.
The crushed peas.
Details are very important.
Which is why I mentioned the Egyptian cotton sheets. The silk dressing gown.
Indeed.
And the white lily.
I don't remember a white lily.
It was in the vase on the breakfast table.
And now I'm getting stressed because I can't remember it.
Never mind.
You trying to relax me doesn't change the truth. We're still 3 and a bit years away from home and everyone will be 20-something years older.
Which is why when you think of home, it's important to remember the things and the places that you love the most. Remember people as they were. Don't speculate how they are. Which in any event will turn into a journey up your own backside as you end up feeling more and more sorry for yourself.
I'm not feeling sorry for myself.
What then?
I'm fed up. Fed up with you. Me and you.
Well, there isn't a great deal we can do about that.
Beginning to wonder if the hypothesis is faulty.
Faulty how?
Faulty like nebulium.
What do you mean?
It's an element that never was. Hypothesized for data that a guy called Wright couldn't make sense of in the 1900s.
Our comet providing the faulty data.
The models they used at the time didn't allow for what was actually happening, which was a lot more straightforward. It didn't require any additional elements.
Wright was wrong.
Like your jokes. We might have come all this way to study a perfectly ordinary comet.
You're no fun. But I love you anyway.
Isabel.
What? What'd I say? Perfectly ordinary.
Erring on the side of caution is no bad thing.
Well, that's not the word I'd use for that flight plan.
We need to maximize sensor data.
And lunch loss.
Trust me. A yacht. A yacht to tour the Greek islands.
Nice.
Just to swim again. And to see the horizon.
And not my face.
Your face has character.
Whose?
What about you?
Assuming we get the bonus.
Of course.
The hotel.
Which hotel?
Egyptian cotton sheets. Silk dressing gown. Madame Butterfly.
Isabel.
The white noun.
White lily.
You said you'd forgotten.
Was that meant to prompt me?
What?
There aren't any more diagnostics we can run.
It's not right, though.
That much we agree on.
And we know that there's a 2% reduction in processing time.
For no clear reason.
For no adjective noun. What?
Run that again? The last 15 seconds or so.
There aren't any more diagnostics
we can run. After that.
For no clear reason. For no adjective noun.
There's something.
What sort of something?
It's in the lattice, corrupting your hologram. Again.
Randomly.
I don't know how to tell.
Language. Memory. Self.
But we don't know the scope.
Subject have to verb the worst.
You know what that means?
Reboot.
I can't.
Reboot. Subject might not verb it.
That weekend was our first time away. We'd mostly been at my place before then. I'd had longer relationships, but with her. With you. It was different. Such kindness.
Subject. Verb. Object.
The Sublime says solid light companion, your personal holographic computer interface. What would you like to call me?
Here in the recording, we hope this sci-fi randomness was to your liking.
I did not pay attention to what came up next.
Perfect. The timing was still fabulous. 9:44, I guess. So, my man, you still good to go, or you want to head out?
Yeah, no, I'm good if you are.
All right. I just wanted to be polite. Oh.
So, when you were talking earlier, and I'm really disappointed in myself because I thought I had wasted so much of my life watching television and movies. And like every TV show you brought up was one that people have talked to me, told me I would like, and I just have not watched all the ones that you brought up.
All right, well,
this idea of this being a ship and all of that, the way I see myself in all of this is I am very much... Okay, you know, in whatever story it is, you get your hero from town, who goes off on this big adventure, and they encounter all these fucking weirdos along the way in different environments, and each one has something to teach them and is like the master of that environment, but lives off in their own fucking world. You meet the weird witches and fucking creatures. I feel like one of those. I feel like I live on the part of the map where it says, "Here there be dragons," and that I'm one of Pajot's sort of dog-headed men. I'm off in that area of monsters on the edge. I have no business in the center. I'm not the hero from town. Like Andrew and Ryan are heroes from town. You get what I mean? I'm one of those fucking weirdos from the edge of the world that they encounter. And I'm happy to step in and get involved in all this. But I do not consider the real world my business. I don't consider the center of town my fucking business anymore. It's not the world I live in.
You just have this magic portal that sits on your desk.
Yes. But even with this little portal, and then sort of to get away from the ship, and as a different, just metaphor, it's like a new terrain. Like the internet is like a new dimension, and YouTube itself is almost like a continent or something that has all these different areas.
So like there's a Twitter sphere.
Like a physical space.
And the different members of the audience are the parts of the two spheres that Zen or Ben. Like a person will be on Twitter and on YouTube and have like all these digital fragmentary selves.
Yeah.
I have stuffed into the mask of Griswold Grimm.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that identity has like avatars in all these different places.
But I had dropped out of all. So because when I first got back online, I was involved in a couple spots online, and I used Facebook like years ago for a while. But I had dropped out for a long time of using any social media whatsoever. And I never used YouTube like social media.
No, you were just a consumer.
Yeah, I used it like a TV station almost, or like a library or a fucking radio station. And yeah, of all social media, I really only used Facebook. I've never ever been on Twitter. And I don't consider this, like, to me, YouTube is very much somewhere I'm still not native to. I feel like an outsider in YouTube, but like I found a dark alley no one else had territory over, and it's, like a dark alley or in a rough neighborhood when the gang or the gangs that border it, when the local homeless people, when you fed the stray dog.
The Hell's Kitchen of Daredevil.
Yeah, so I feel like I found an alleyway where the stray dog that freaks people out, I fed it, where I know the couple bums, where I know, I found this dark little alley of this place that I don't belong, that I can camp out and talk to people. But again, I don't know what all the rules in town are, so I stay in my dark little alley.
Well, let me tell you, sir, this is the alley where Bruce Wayne's parents died.
And so with all of this, I became aware even before you got active, I saw the possibility that more people would want to get active and this might grow. Yeah, whatever the fuck this turns into, I'm going to go along for the ride. But I'm still not planning anything, and it's not like I'm going to go along with anything. It's just, okay, I'm just going to be me, and if people have a use for that, I will just interact with whatever this is that's happening, however is natural to me.
Yeah, you're just crew. You're not, steering the boat.
I don't even feel like crew. I feel too far out from society at all. I feel...
Well, you're through the magic portal. It's your persona that's, powering the ship, at least half powering the ship right now.
I suppose... but that doesn't feel that real to me. It's just starting to sink in. I don't know. I have just been rambling.
It's like, hey, internet people, this is what actual human connection looks like. So you know it when you see it.
But even as I'm doing it all, I get so caught up in just who I'm talking to that I'm not even thinking about it on that level often. Especially early on, if I started to think about the audience, anxiety would kick in.
Oh, for sure.
Then I have trouble keeping up with Andrew or Ryan for a second, which means I really have to focus on them. And then I forget we're recording or live, and I lose myself and my connection with that person. That was the cycle I went through. I'm getting less and less anxiety.
Well, your live streams are pretty solid, especially when you open with the reading and then talk about it. Like, that's exposing a lot of people to some deep shit so they can be thankful for that, even if it's from a lunatic.
And I've just and that all just grew out of me trying to find a way I can do this given my nature. Yeah, it turned out to be helpful to have something to read at the beginning if I have to go on, because when I try to plan saying something, that hasn't worked out so well. And yeah, it's just me playing with different ways of doing this.
I want to say I noticed it as a matter of style. When you're reading comments, you'll jump ahead and see if the next comment from that person is like a continuation of what they were saying. And that's really helpful as a viewer. Like, that's a solid skill that you didn't always have, and I saw you pick up, so I wanted to
okay, good.
See, there's this thing I call the LARP gate, and that's because the truther community, it's a truther community thing, but that it's also a Nietzsche thing, which is a common phrase of fake it till you make it. Like, if I decided to be a YouTuber and cover truthful stuff, so like I just did what I thought it would look like, or LARPed it, and it broke for me the fourth wall that I didn't realize was there between like consumer audience and actual human being. It's like well, I went to a play once, and it was with Storm Large and Cabaret or something, and the pimps came down into the audience and during one of the numbers, and it broke it for me. So it was like that again, but coming onto YouTube, it's like, to have an actual voice, it has to have the potential to go viral, or you're just somebody in the comments. Like the wall between somebody in the comments and somebody saying what they actually think, or speaking whatever their truth is. What in the community I was in, it was about the truth, right? So, but I found it like Peterson and a couple other instances where YouTube felt like going to college were good. And then when I found the truth stuff, it was somebody that was doing a Truman Show of the putting on the YouTube show on the Twitch back channel. And that's when I first realized that the people that are watching the same stuff all the time become an audience community. And I saw what was going on there and the potential there. And so I'd been exploring that. And while I was exploring that, you came on with Andrew, who is, I would say, like Peterson made the impact of showing the mainstream the impact of somebody with a good YouTube channel. And so, like, as Andrew was kind of part of that wave, and I saw you playing on it, like, I encouraged that because it was like mimetically it's like the pyramid they're using over here would work great for that. So it's on that level that I don't know. I don't know on what level that is, but that was what I saw on one of the levels.
And so how has this been for you? Because, yeah, you're right that, like, right from the beginning when you saw me on, you saw how I could fit into something else and you wanted me to continue. What was it like to sort of get your wish? Do you know what I mean? And I guess at first it probably looked like you didn't. I did a couple things and disappeared for a while, right?
Well, there was a whole phase where Andrew was going through his shutdown of the channel and he pulled off everything.
Yeah, he pulled everything down.
What I had already referenced you with my earliest incarnations of trying to do this. I was trying to get a friend to come on with me as a co-host, and he reminds me a whole lot of you. So okay. I had shown him one of your early interviews with Andrew to try to pitch him the notion. But So just the stuff that came out in there, and I don't even remember what it was now, but I knew it was valuable when I saw you and Andrew doing your thing. So I saw the gold in it.
And okay, that's funny because you said when you saw me way back then, it reminded you of someone else. You showed them and said, like, trying to get them to do this. But now here you are, not with someone like me, but with me doing a video with you.
It's good. You've done a lot more internal work. So.
Is that fun? Do you feel like you have some agency in that? Is it surreal? Or
I don't know. It's like to the
you just
extent
know
that what you wouldn't mind happening and what I see could happening bends properly. It's very exciting. So
what do you see?
You're
and like,
kind of,
don't worry about anyone else. I'm not asking what you're gonna do. I'm just asking about your own like personal vision. And I in fact want you to be selfish. Like, I want to hear your deep, like, natural reaction, not thinking. So don't think about what I want for a moment, or Ryan, or don't try to make it sound good. Just, yeah, what vision do you have inside?
I have an Xavier Institute fetish where there's a place where the broken kids learn how to use their powers. And you're kind of like half Sabretooth to Wolverine, like as far as reference point.
And now you're right in with reference. I get strong. Wolverine was my favorite all through my childhood. And yes, I get what you mean that I'm down the middle of those two. I felt that.
Plus you're up in Canada, right? So,
yeah.
No, that doesn't hurt.
I've also thought of myself that exact way. So I totally get what you're talking about there. And in fact, I've had some neat dreams about the X-Men mutants. I did have one dream where I was just walking through the woods somewhere and I encountered some kids that like needed help. And I helped them with whatever it was and helped like to get them home, and they were mutants from Xavier's. And in the dream, it was like, you know, sometimes time can compress, but like jump. So at first it was first getting brought into Xavier's, but by like these little kids, these like 7-year-olds in the middle of the night the first time. And then it jumped to where I'd been around for a while. And I was like in the kitchen of the Xavier mansion, smoking and talking to, I forget which other mutant it was. And they were laughing and saying how only me and Wolverine could get away with smoking in the mansion, and that Charles Xavier wouldn't let anyone else.
Yeah. So perhaps the channel is a manifestation of Cerebro.
Yeah, I can see that. And in fact, the metaphor is perfect. We do connect our consciousness to this machine, and it amps up the wavelength so that our usual method of communication is just transmitted. You're right, that might be what this is. And for me, I feel like it hasn't sunk into you how fully I had no plan, and quite how especially at first, how much I had to focus on just doing it and not have the audience sink in. It was very surreal for me for a couple months. And also during that time, I didn't tell, no one but my wife knew at first. It's also a secret that made it easier for it to seem fictional. It was to a certain amount, I kept it dissociated from my real life. And I really have just been finding out what would happen if I plug into this. Because trusting the overall process. Trusting whatever that behind guidance is, that I'm supposed to do it. And then now, though, it's starting to sink in and I'm starting to look back. And it's like, rather than planning what I would do, I'm now looking back to try to figure out what I have done. Like, what is it I'm doing?
Yeah.
But I very much, especially my way to prepare for everything at the beginning, was to center myself, zero out, get totally now blank myself of everything, and then just respond to who was talking to me. It's also at first I wasn't going on live. Oh, or if I went on live, my first couple, like my first one especially, I thought I was going to delete it right after. I had a problem, was focused on that problem, was looking for an interaction. So
get the chipmunk magic, man. You're gonna do fine.
Yeah. I'm following the magic and all of that and trusting that it had some purpose for me. And I'm seeing now that one is I can be to other people what Sacha Dubrow was for me. Like just his relationship with his own bipolar, his comfortableness with it, the way he'd integrate. But the first impact was hearing him and all the other guys in Leftover Crack on the radio casually talking and joking about how he's bipolar.
How do you spell his name?
Sascha.
And then?
Altman, Altman. And then Dubrul, Dubrul. He was the bass player for Choking Victim. Do you know those bands, Choking Victim, and then they sort of renamed themselves Leftover Crack?
No, I'm not familiar with these people at all.
Real fucking hardcore punk and very anti-establishment and anti-New World Order. One of their albums is called Fuck World Trade.
Wow.
Actually, yeah, you would love some Leftover Crack.
My fancy internet research, sir, has revealed that he's part of the Icarus Project. Dum, dum, dum.
Yes, he's not now, though.
Oh, that's former.
He's moved on from that. He did that for a while. But yeah, that's Sacha there.
Is this his face? Is this his actual channel? Is that his
face? Yeah, that's Sacha. He's got that TED Talk. That's him.
All right. Get in my history.
Yeah, check out a bit of that one, Navigating Brilliance and Madness. But he's been all over the place. He's done a lot of writing, and he's done a lot of traveling and talking.
And I'm going to talk to you about paradigm shifts in the world of mental health and mental illness. And the
paradigm shifts in the world of mental health and mental illness.
Way my friends and I are changing the world. But
oh, look at that imagery. That's like a base with the crown. She looks like she's
drawing her own wing. And the metaphor of Icarus is the way insanity is a dangerous gift, and the way Icarus's wings are a gift. But if you're not careful, you go too high and burn them and crash.
All right, well, I'm going to go have another cigarette and let this run for a little bit. Is that cool?
Yeah, absolutely.
First, a beautiful metaphor. How many people here have ever grown a garden? Raise your hand. Not bad for Manhattan. So real quick, if you've ever grown a garden or if you've never grown a garden, one of the first things you need to know when you're growing a garden is what kind of soil you have. You need to have organic matter at the top, and you can basically break soil down into the topsoil and the subsoil, and then the subsoil is based on whatever the bedrock is below. So the topsoil is where the organic matter is, and the subsoil is where the micronutrients are. And most plants stay in the topsoil. If you're growing a garden of vegetables and flowers, it's like your stuff is growing up there. But then there's certain plants like the humble dandelion that have deep tap roots. And what they do is they go down into the subsoil, pull up nutrients from the subsoil, and then when they die, they break down into the topsoil. So there's this whole relationship between the above and the below. I think this is a really great metaphor for talking about culture. There's a lot of really important things that happen in the cultural underground. And there's a lot of things that happen in the mainstream. And the reason that they're happening is because there's these things that, there's this whole relationship. We will come back to this. I'm going to tell you a story, and it's a really personal story. When I was 18 years old, I was locked up in a psychiatric ward for the first time in my life. The police found me walking on the subway tracks, and I thought that the world was about to end and that I was being broadcast live on primetime television on all the channels. I thought that there was microscopic transmitters implanted under my skin that was recording my thoughts for some top-secret branch of the CIA, and I hadn't slept in a really long time. The cops found me, wrestled me to the ground, brought me to an underground jail cell. Then I ended up in Bellevue Psychiatric Emergency Room, and then I ended up in a public mental hospital upstate for 2.5 months, and then a private mental hospital, like a behavior modification place that my mom put me in. The story that I'm telling you is this one that I have carried around for years. It's like the story that like had an enormous impact on me as a teenager. Try and imagine it. Try and imagine being an 18-year-old kid and you're suddenly told that you have a biological brain disease that you're going to have for the rest of your life, and that there's nothing that you can do except to take the medication they're telling you need to take, and that you're probably going to be on disability and not really going to be able to travel. It's like I really wanted to understand what had happened to me. And so I stepped out and I looked into the history a little bit. This is a picture of me and my classmates in 1980. You can see me, I'm like I'm on the right side, a little pipsqueak right there. 1980 is a very important year if we want to understand the way that all of us think about mental health and mental illness. 1980, this happened to be the year that the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders.
OMG! Have you heard about the origin of the DSM? That work?
Hey, sorry.
That's right.
I didn't realize you were back.
Yeah, I was fumbling around with the controls. Have you heard the origin of the DSM? Bunch of wizards got together in Switzerland or something and made it up so they can bill you on your insurance. Good times, sir. Good time.
Yeah, when did that start?
1980 was what he was saying when I jumped in at the end of the video, or where I clipped the video and jumped in.
For some reason, once you leave, I lose interest in it. Even though I picked that, I lost interest and put music on.
That's
right.
It was like, it's stuff we've seen, we're sharing with the audiences that watch us in the future, like a time capsule. We're constantly creating time capsules in the wave of history because we're all paralogically. How did you feel about talking with Freak?
That was fucking awesome, although, do you notice how fucking tired I look? That's the one thing where I set an alarm earlier than I usually get up. So the first half of that, I was barely awake.
I like it.
But that was fucking awesome. And Paul Vanderklay as well. He was so fun to talk to. First of all, you talk for a minute. I put a melatonin under my tongue.
Okay. I want to say I think it's really impressive how like Ryan has access to all these thinkers. Like in the field, they're like actually, they sell books and do stuff. So it's cool that he's got that in, and that level of academic can see the level of what's going on in YouTube chat rooms, for example. The level of thought, like the basically untapped Peterson audience. I mean, I see a world where most of our youth is spent in digital realms, attention boxes of games and stuff. I mean,
my youth was so different.
Yeah.
My youth was so different. Like computers meant, and in fact, I was even late to computers. Even when I went through college, I used the computer lab as little as possible and could barely use a computer in college. And I got the majority of my teachers to make exceptions for me and let me hand in handwritten shit. My youth was like a previous generation. Like my whole youth was, and while I had video games, I had like Super Nintendo and shit.
But yes, you went outside and talked to people, right?
But for me, Saturday mornings were cartoons, and it was exciting because we only had a couple channels, like 2 or 3, and one was in French, and one was the public TV. I was so excited for Masters of the Universe and Transformers. And it was once a week. It was all you could see. A movie was such a huge deal. And I can remember the first time my parents rented like Not even a VCR. It was one of those ones before with the big discs that you slide in, like older than a VCR.
The laser disc? Yeah.
No, not laser disc.
Older than...
It was almost like a giant flat 8-track.
What?
It was like,
no, I never even saw those, man.
Like the size of a record type thing. There were some weird older ones, but I can remember, and when VCRs first came out, the local store, like in a small town, I grew up around small towns and like in the country, you could rent the VCR for a weekend, like with tapes, because we didn't have VCRs yet. And that blew my mind, that you could choose when to watch the movie. It wasn't like you had to, it wasn't like either at a theater where you miss it if you have to piss, or at home where you sit there needing to piss, waiting for a commercial, or like when I was a kid during a commercial break, you'd try to rush to make a snack, and you got to get the fuck back or you can't see it. It blew my mind just to be able to watch a movie at home. And when I was a kid, if you called someone and they were going to be gone for 3 days, you got like their parents or someone who were like, he'll be back Monday. And so you waited to talk to them till Monday. And like, you didn't expect to just get a hold of people. And the way you used to have to make plans where it was like, okay, I'm going to meet you here, but if not, we'll meet down at the creek. You make backup plans and shit because you can't call anyone.
You weren't on a leash, man. It's different now.
Also, when I hear Jonathan Haidt talk about how kids are raised now, for me, it was so fucking different. Like, even when I was fucking young, like 5, I can remember hopping on my big wheels and riding around town on my own, like going to Becker's with my allowance to buy candy. When you're so young, you can't even tell, where you're like, how much gum can I get for this type age?
It's like everyone knew the neighborhood kids because they were neighborhood kids. And
like the rule for me all summer was like, you just had to be home when the street lights came on.
Yep.
Yeah, street lights come on, you got to get home.
And or if you're not, your ass will learn.
Or you phone from a friend's house and ask if you can stay for dinner or whatever. But yeah, and one of my rules was you can't cross the highway when I was that young age. But every now and then it was really fun to cross the highway, and there was like a tree nursery there that also like you weren't supposed to go in.
Yeah, we were raised as free range children.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we dared each other to climb dangerous trees and to grab onto telephone wires. And yeah, we did all kinds of stupid shit. But also like, fuck, even when I was a teenager, how excited I would be to go into the city, or like preteen type age, and go and buy fucking cassettes, and how excited I was to get new music. The way now you can just pop on YouTube and hear just about anything is fucking amazing. I used to spend a fortune on rare punk tapes. And
just saw this great piece of sci-fi on they call it like the story of the long-necked giraffe or something, and the government decides that they didn't like the content of this kid's book about a giraffe, and so they just deleted off everybody's Kindles and praised the service of it, having that service. So, like I said, man, out here it sometimes looks like a dystopian nightmare. But if you like look back in history, it usually was too. So, depending on where you landed in the populace.
Well, who knows? Like, it's easy to romanticize the past as well. It's always been a weird fucking mix, and who knows what to make of everything. Even with all the catastrophes and the wars and the slavery and the shitty governments, I don't know how much that really affected people. You know, back in the day, even like Nero, as bad as he might have been, what really was the life of the average peasant?
They were still doing it a day at a time, that's for damn sure.
Yeah, but also maybe what was wrong with a day at a time? What's wrong with living a day at a time? And yeah, there's times we've starved, but there's other times we haven't.
All right, but
also,
I want to start a religious cult. I want to start a religious cult that fundraises for youth paintball, and I want to have an army of youth, of men of the next generation who can aim and shoot paintballs in urban environments. Is that too much to ask?
Have you heard Alan Moore's Mandrilla Festo?
No, but it sounds beautiful.
There's a song he did, which I'm actually not a huge fan of the music, actually, but I love the lyrics. But also, there's an interview with Alan Moore as the Mandrill running for prime minister. And the song, like, encapsulates that sort of fictional political ideology. So find the, let's see. Can you find one of Alan Moore as the Mandrill?
This is me being your Jamie, Joe Rogan style. Rosebud, legendary writer Alan Moore retires. Here, I'll just start to share. It'll make more sense.
An interview with a Mandrill. Put that one on.
Interview with, how do you spell mandrill? Like that?
Mandrill.
Is this what you're looking for, sir?
Yes.
All right, let's do it.
Welcome to this special edition of Newsnight. Today we are joined by someone who's been described as unhinged, deranged, and psychotic, but with really nice shoes. In this special interview, I'll be probing behind those leopard-scaring eyes with the balanced and unbiased questioning you've come to expect from the BBC's Current Affairs Department. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Mandrill cometh.
The Mandrill cometh.
It's a pleasure to be here, Kirsty.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Mr. Mandrill, you're not worshipped, you're not loved, you're not obeyed, you're regularly petted. Can you now accept that your fluorescent utopia has failed?
Kirsty, if me take points one at a time. With worship, there is a lot of merchandise, a lot of badges, a lot of t-shirts, a lot of vinyl singles and other things, most of them available from Arts Lab Northampton. And if that's not worship, then me don't know what is. And also, me have worked with Youth, famous producer from Killing Joke. That's pretty good. Me think you have to agree. Also, with Obey, me think that we am obeyed. Give banana! Give banana now! Give banana! And
hey, ladies and gentlemen, give banana. Give banana now.
Fluorescent utopia. Would say there is fluorescent utopia all around, but you would need ultraviolet light for it to really show up. And have been petted, that's true. But then people have lost fingers, which regrettable, especially children.
Okay, thank you. Your opponents...
Oh! Sorry.
That's quite all right. Your opponents called you strong and unstable. Yet you embraced this as your campaign slogan, repeating it over and over as if that
strong
gave it
and
some
unstable.
Sort of
Strong and unstable.
Strong, unstable. But, me take point. Perhaps me overdo it with strong, unstable. What you am saying is need new, repetitive, meaningless slogan. Perhaps little and large. We promise little and large government. I am only candidate who can be little and large. That any better?
I'm not entirely sure it is. Just to focus on your...
and large.
Okay. Just to focus on your policy initiative for a moment, your manifesto can only be described as some sort of psychedelic madness. Could the nation trust you to be strong on security and the terrorist threat, for example?
With terrorists, I be little and large. First, we find terrorists. we find terrorists, then we scream at them. We scream and we scream. We throw feces. We scream at them and scream till they paralyze with fear. Then we bite them through soft part of skull. Little and large. Oh. Sorry.
Yes, I think an apology is in order there. What approach would you bring to the forthcoming Brexit negotiations?
Dang, Brexit.
Surely you've been
recent-ish.
naked in the negotiating chambers of Europe.
That's true, Kirsty. That's true. Make me naked. But I'm Andrew. Pretty usually I'm naked. I mean, dress up like this for public appearances, but usually it's naked. But that not necessarily disadvantage. Tend to find it makes people even more frightened. So, I am in negotiating chambers of Europe. I am naked. I am look at negotiators. I am scream at them. I am scream. I am scream. I am throw faces. I am scream. Then I am bite them through soft part of skull.
Well, I've got to be honest here, that's one of the more rational answers we've had from any politician.
I think I'm gonna call it, my man.
Yeah, well, good talking to you. And
fun.
what do you think you're gonna do with this? You gonna post it? I'm fine with everything. You can do whatever you want.
I figure I'll kick it to Ryan, and then I guess you guys will both have it when he has it.
Do you want to post any of it on your channel?
Let's work that out in the Discord, conveniently available for you to join at whatever the link below says. We can work that out later.
Yeah, sure. And yeah, just maybe don't expect to hear from Ryan for what, about a week and a half?
Yeah, he's still got a week and a half.
Yeah.
So, but like, I'll go over and see if there's like maybe run promo clips. I don't know. I'll figure something out, but not tonight. Thanks, though. This was good. I appreciate the time
good
a lot.
to you. No, and I appreciate everything you're doing with the community. And yeah, I recognize in you, you're just looking to do some good here, and that's fucking awesome. I'm really glad you're a part of this.
And remember, guys, paintball, because you want your kid to be able to shoot. Good night.